Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're going to love me in Karen Hunter is Awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of The Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is Awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed. This is a West Virginia couple. Donald Lance, 62, and his wife, Jean K. Whitefeather, 63. They were convicted of child abuse, human trafficking, forced labor. They were found guilty. This was, when were they found guilty? I don't remember. Anyway, so back in 2018, the couple adopted 5 black children. Mm-hmm. They moved to Kanawha County, which is, I guess, in West Virginia, in 2023, according to the prosecutors. They were arrested in October after a neighbor called Child Protective Services alleging that 2 of the teenagers, 14 and 16, were locked in a shed at the couple's home in Sissonville. Other neighbors claimed that the children were forced to perform farm labor and were not permitted inside the house, inside the residence. So they adopted children, black children, and used them as enslaved people. Deputies responded. 2 children were locked in the shed, as the neighbor said, and with a portable toilet, no running water. I'm sure it was a bucket. And the children told authorities that they were forced to sleep on the floor and had been locked in the shed for 12 hours a day. Today, they were sentenced after they were convicted of these charges back in January. They were convicted in January. They were sentenced today. Donald Lance, 62, and Jean K. Whitefeather, 63, sentenced to 160 years in prison. I love this. I love that they were sentenced to 160 years.
It's a lot of years.
You know, Roderick, understatement.
Yes. I mean,
yes.
That, like, if they found a drug that could make you live forever, they still doing a long time.
They
like
they were vampires.
Resurrected.
Yes.
Like, that's what they wanted to make sure. Good grief.
But I was thinking about this case because my dad, his second career after he retired at 50, thought he was not going to live. Actually retired at 48, thought he was not going to live to 50, and then spent all his money. He had to go back to work. He was an institutional social worker. So he would he would go to schools and like prisons for youth and things. And then he would also, before he did that, he was a regular social worker with people who were taking children in foster care. And I remember him having a conversation about these very wealthy mansions. You see that house? You know, we drive around. Yeah, that house, that mansion in Short Hills, they have 3 foster kids that are black. You know, like it would... And it started to shape for me. And I'm not saying that people who take in foster, because there's a lot of great foster homes or whatever, but there is a diabolical nature to some people. And I don't know how we talk about it, but we need to talk about it because trafficking of human beings is a big business, right? We're not, we talk about Epstein Island and now there's Puffy. Some people like to, you know, make fun, but there's we have a problem in this world, and particularly in this country, with the defilement of human beings. And this couple, I can't imagine they're the only ones doing this, Roderick. And they adopted these children because foster care, you gotta be checked in on. You know what I'm saying? Like, my dad had to show up to these people's houses, make sure everything was good, and come back, surprise visits. You adopt children, you pretty much off the grid, right? You can do what you want. They purposely moved to some place where they didn't think anybody. Thank God for these neighbors, by the way. The nosy neighbors. Thank God for Mrs. What's bewitched neighbor name? Mrs. Whatever her name was across the street. The lady would be looking through her, you know, or Pearl from 227, another cultural reference.
I always say on the,
you ain't heard it from me.
I always say on our podcast that, like, the nosy neighbor, underrated.
Correct.
Because honestly, I know they annoying. I know you don't want to talk to them. I know you don't want them in your business. But every time you ever read about like a welfare check, You know, it's just like, oh, they didn't see her for a few days, and then they found her in the basement, you know, and it's like, it's because somebody that just wasn't minding their business. They was old school.
Yes.
And they see you get in your car at 7 a.m. every morning. They see you get home at 6, and they start asking questions
That's
when it's
right.
6:15. And shout out to them.
Listen, we had one in my neighborhood growing up, and I love her because if there was somebody on the street that went into our driveway that wasn't supposed to be there. She called 911 and gathered them the hell up out of there. Like we
didn't
need those people.
We didn't grow up with Ring doorbell cameras.
Correct.
Okay, you had a lady on the street that told you who. Hey, they stopped by the house at 5 and look, they was wearing suits. It's like they wanted something. You like, oh, okay, I need to watch out. I don't know if Jehovah's Witnesses or the lawyers. I gotta watch out.
Do y'all still got the nosy neighbor? Because I definitely had one. I might be the one in my neighborhood. I'm have to admit, I might be that one. 866-801-8255. I will call 911 on somebody in a second. I am the one. I am that one. I am the one. Mrs. Kravitz. Thank you, Doreen. Also, let me make a correction because Donald Lance, 62, was sentenced to 160 years. His wife, Jean K. Whitefeather, was sentenced to 215 years, Roderick,
Jesus.
Because they added.
Oh, my goodness.
215 years. They meant this. They meant you ain't ever getting out.
Ooh, that's
because in addition to the trafficking, the child abuse, the neglect, the forced labor, she also violated these children's civil rights. I want to know what she did. How
did he not?
I don't know. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. Wasn't the one to chain them to the.
He was like, listen, okay, you can beat them, you can make them do forced labor, but I draw the line at civil rights. Okay, that's you on your own. When it comes, I'm not getting 250 years. Them 90 years, that's on you. That I'm when they ask about me in court, I'm gonna say all I did was beat them, Your Honor. Okay.
Yeah. yo. What? 215, 215. Oh, that's a lot of years though. That's still a lot. Grief. Like you said, if they live forever,
at that point, what's the difference? At that point,
correct.
Give me 250.
250. Oh my God! But what kind of people are these?
Experience Karen Hunter in a completely different way. Karen Hunter is awesome. The podcast.
If you like me on SiriusXM Urban View Channel 126, you're gonna love me. And Karen Hunter is awesome. Hey, this is Karen Hunter, host of the Karen Hunter Show on SiriusXM's Urban View. Karen Hunter is awesome is an actual podcast to bring heat and energy and knowledge and power. A 1-2 punch that I don't think you get anyplace else. Tell the truth. Check out the podcast wherever you get your podcast. You will not be disappointed.